have dreamed of this moment for a long time, ever since those foolish elders tried to trick and trap us in this pathetic realm. Even they didn't understand how dangerous it was to leave an evil artifact in our midst. And now comes the fun part. We plan to toy with these fantasy footballers a little more, because it is just too much fun to see them fight for their precious green ball. As supreme rulers of the master realm, we can now possess elders and overseers. But I am letting the one key in play with his friends. Think of that chaos, knowing we betrayed them. We have also set forth in motion the resurrection of all realms. But in our image, the beings will be unchanged. The worlds will slowly become dark and mad. The rest of you should lead our armies to conquer these realms. Initial you lot. You can go back to a world we once were. The one where those worthless Shadow Brigade members are from. Teach them a lesson for double-crossing me the last time we met. Should I leave survivors? Yes, you should. It is always more chaotic when these fools try to survive. Remember, as rulers of the Master Realm, we instill in you the power of immortality. Nothing can stop you. They won't know that. And I will slowly cause them to all lose their minds. Hopefully erode their trust and force them to fight each other. Excellent! As for you, contemporary, why don't you pay a visit to our Fae friends? Without their precious queen, they should be easily corrupted again. You can steal their artifacts and toy with them, hopefully unlocking portals again that will bring chaos to other realms as well.
How many should I possess?
Half is about right. The rest will try to fight back. It'll be quite amusing, and they will probably escape in the end, leaving the entire realm as your base of operations to imprison other beings from other realms.
This is going to be fun. I might force them all to escape quickly just to get to the chaos of stealing beings and putting them through the trials I'll create that none will win.
We cannot wait to see your chaotic visions come to life. Finally, Aqua Mortua. I'm sending you to the place these dreaming league members are from, specifically the planet Earth in that realm. Those primitive beings probably don't even understand what happened. They've disappeared in a panic and reappeared now confused and lost. They are trying to understand what happened and probably making up a lie, swamp gas or something like that. We want you to make them pay for their lies.
We will conquer them like their popular games and movies. Slowly, methodically, we will infiltrate the government and bring chaos through policy. And at the same time, people will start to disappear as I work with the other generals. And any who resist will be my personal plaything as I drive them so insane that they do my bidding against their own people.
So we all have our tasks to start the era of chaos and destruction. Happy hunting! Let the games begin!
Welcome to the quest for the Green Ball, the war within, and welcome to the start of the playoffs. We will be crowning a new champion this season. There's not going to be a repeat. There are two squads playing in a quarterfinal who both have a chance at their second title in their league career, however. The four other teams are all vying for their first ever Green Bowl title, including one league rookie, which actually is not that unprecedented. In fact, a league rookie has won the Green Bowl 5 times in 10 seasons. This is the 11th season. But before we jump into some of those fun stats, which I'm sure we're going to be doing for all these last couple episodes, let's go back over a crazy Week 14 that had 3 division titles crowned, including both first-round buys and the playoff spot, a final playoff spot being secured. The biggest of the matchups was essentially a play-in game in the Dream Division for that Dream Division championship in the last as The Stars Are Right squad took on Green Acres in the Temple of the Eye. This one was a 50-50 toss-up in projections coming in, but in the end it was all the Stars Are Right as they decimated Green Acres 114.24 to 57.98 to cruise into the playoffs for the 7th time in 11 seasons. My squad was led on the back of player to watch Puka Nacua, who had his best game of the year at exactly the right time. He collected 167 yards and 2 touchdowns in a beast performance. On the other side, Jameson Williams had a nice game too, with 103 yards, but he didn't have a touchdown. That hurt. The rest of their squad had fairly forgettable weeks. Touchdowns by Baker Mayfield and Kyron Williams really being the only other highlights. Jacoby Brissett continued to shine in garbage time for my team with 271 passing yards, 22 rushing yards, and 2 scores. He did throw a pick, though. Devon Achane had 105 yards and a touchdown, but did leave due to a rib injury, which is concerning. He was supposedly okay to come back in, but wasn't needed, so they rested him. Hopefully he's good to go this week. Jalen Waddle had 71 yards and a score, and A.J. Brown finished with 100 yards. Green Acres closes the season 6-8, will be the 2nd seed in the Consolation playoffs with the bye there. The Stars Are Right squad claimed the Dream Division, the 6th division title in my career, and will be the 3 seed in the playoffs. Another match for a division title featured Treatum and Yeatum and Thor-lacher in the Shadow Division, and just like the Dream Division, it was a one-sided affair, with Treatum and Yeatum getting the 116.16 to 67.7 beatdown. The kicker, Brandon Aubrey, was the leader for Treatum and Yeatum with 3 50-yard field goals on Thursday night. 22 points. Always great for a kicker to get that. T. Higgins stepped up with 92 yards and 2 scores, and Jared Goff added 309 passing yards and a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor, T.J. Hawkinson, and David Montgomery also found the end zone. And the Texans' defense added 2 sacks and 3 picks against Patrick Mahomes, who was on Thor-lacher's team, so that hurt double for Thor-lacher. Travis Etienne did end up with 82 yards and 2 touchdowns to lead Thor-lacher. And Khalil Shakir added a touchdown, while Derrick Henry had 102 yards. But that obviously wasn't enough. Treatum and Yeatum finishes 10-4 and is the number 1 overall seed in her first league season. There may be a rematch with Thor-lacher, however. Thor-lacher gets the 5th seed at the top of the playoff bracket, which means 1 win, and they would play Treatum and Yeatum in the semifinals. Golden Ticket claimed their first ever division title in a power division matchup against low-key Lebowski Thor, winning 99.46 to 77.54. Tony Pollard came out of nowhere with 161 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Browns defense. Lamar Jackson added 2 scores, and Bucky Irving also reached the end zone. Brock Bowers scored as well. Lebowski Thor had 2 touchdowns by Caleb Williams and 2 more by Chase Brown. He also had 6 sacks and 3 picks with the Dolphins defense, but that was pretty much it. Golden Ticket finishes 10-4 and is the number 2 seed, awaiting the winner of the 3 versus 6 quarterfinal. Low-key Lebowski Thor finishes 4-10 and will need to play in the Consolation quarterfinals. Remember, the Titans crushed the Stellar Bitches 110.96 to 72.24 to keep hopes of a division title alive, but Golden Ticket's win means that Remember the Titans is the 4 seed in the quarterfinals, taking on Thor-lacher. Joe Burrow, who was somehow dropped by Lebowski Thor, ended up with 4 touchdowns, and Jamar Gibbs added 3 touchdowns to finish with 30 points. That was obviously a big chunk of Remember the Titans scoring here. Jackson Smith and Jigba also continued to shine with 2 more touchdowns, and Dalton Kincaid also reached the end zone. Dak Prescott had 376 passing yards, a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion to lead the Stellar Bitches. The Bills' defense added a touchdown, and Cameron Digger finished with 5 field goals, including a 50-plus yarder. Remember, the Titans is, of course, 10-4, and as I said, will be taking on Thor-lacher in the quarterfinals, with the winner taking on top-seeded Treat 'em and Eat 'em. The Stellar Bitches fall to 4-10 and will play low-key Lebowski Thor in the Consolation quarterfinals. Pounders might not be in the playoffs, but he had one of his best weeks of the season against a playoff team, besting the Clash at Demonhead 123.14 and 95.06. Matthew Stafford had 3 touchdowns, and Josh Jacobs and Javonte Williams also reached the end zone. CeeDee Lamb had 121 yards before concussion protocol ended his week, and Harold Fannin went off for 114 yards and a score. Jake Bates had 3 field goals and 5 extra points, while the Eagles' defense had 7 sacks, an interception, and 2 fumble recoveries. Trevor Lawrence led the Clash at Demonhead with 2 touchdowns, while Devin Neal also reached the end zone. DK Metcalf had 148 yards, and Zay Flowers picked up 126 yards, but a lack of touchdowns obviously cost them here. Pounders finishes 3-11 to avoid having the worst winning percentage in league history for a defending champion in the regular season, which I'm sure they're quite happy about. They will be in the Consolation quarterfinals as the 6th seed in the Consolation bracket. The Clash at Demonhead finishes 8-6 and will be the 6th seed in the actual playoff bracket, taking on my 3rd-seeded The Stars Are Right team in the quarterfinals, with the winner taking on 2nd-seeded Golden Ticket. Lastly, the Overcomers clinched the top seed in the Consolation playoffs with a 130.54 to 82.7 win over the Fighting Mooses. Josh Allen had himself a game, 4 touchdowns over 40 points. The Seahawks defense added a sack, 2 picks, a fumble recovery, and a return touchdown. Saquon Barkley had 122 yards, including a 50-plus yard score, and Woody Marks also reached the end zone. The Fighting Mooses had one of the worst quarterback performances in league history. Jalen Hurts finished with just 0.4 points thanks to 4 picks and a lost fumble. That actually is the worst ever by a quarterback in a starting lineup in our league. Jalen Warren did score, and Nico Collins had 121 yards. Michael Wilson led the way with 142 yards and 2 scores, and the Broncos defense added 4 sacks and a touchdown. The Overcomers end up 7-7 and will take on the winner of 5-9, the Fighting Mooses and Pounders in the Consolation playoffs. So that is how the playoff field shakes out, with the Stars Are Right squad claiming the Dream Division with the 4th highest point total overall in the league. Treat 'em and Eat 'em ends up with the 3rd best points total as the Shadow Division champion, and Thor-lacher and the Clash at Demonhead also make it out of that division as wild cards, obviously a strong division. 2 teams made it out of the Power Division as Golden Ticket held on to the title with the 2nd most points overall. Remember, the Titans had a slow start and strong finish, which is why they end up as a wild card despite having the most points overall. So now it's time to get to the 2 action-packed quarterfinals, with my number 3, the Stars Are Right team, taking on number 6, the Clash at Demonhead, and number 4, Remember the Titans, taking on number 5, Thor-lacher. And both of us will be playing in the center of the Master Realm this week. Before we get to these incredibly juicy quarterfinal matchups, let's check back in on Mario in the Hidden Realm and see if there's anything we can do to stop Obscitans Abyssus right now.
Mario, I have been waiting for this moment for what seems like generations. I know your mother filled you in, but I am sorry to say that our worst fears are realized.
I noticed the accelerated rate of decay here in the last moments. We lost, didn't we?
Obscitans Abyssus somehow sped up the eclipse and possessed a former league champion to usurp the throne on their behalf. But all is not lost, son. There is still you, and the shadows are cocky and ignorant. They will allow your league mates to live and finish their season, just to cause extra misery.
You mean the trophy can still be powered? This is good news. But if the eclipse already happened, How will the throne open?
The eclipse in the prophecy hasn't actually happened. As I said, the shadows tricked the process by forcing an eclipse. But now that they control the Master Realm inside the center chamber, the eclipse will happen again.
So we still have a small window to make things right. But what about the chaos they will bring?
People will suffer in many worlds and realms, but you can wish them all to forget once you gain control. The issue is that you will need to have Elder Blood to truly change things. The Shadows trick the process by using a League member in the trophy. That residual Elder magic allowed them to gain access to the center chamber. However, the trophy isn't enough, something the Shadows Elders or Overseers will never understand. To truly become king of the realm, you need to have the bloodline within you. This means that while the realm can be controlled by others, they can be usurped as well. The only way the bloodline can be usurped is by killing the king. This is what happened when they killed my father. They created a chaotic struggle for power.
So, is this why they feared me?
I believe they started to understand what was inside of you, yes.
So how do I unlock my true potential as a dream priest and as an elder?
This, me and your mother cannot truly help you with. We can only guide you so you can find your own answers. They are locked away in your mind, one of your dream priest strengths. But you also have a friend in there, I understand. The Queen of the Aishi. She should be able to assist you further.
And what about both of you? I assume this hidden realm will disappear soon.
We will speak again in the Temple of the Eye, but it will be telepathic. Your mother and I have faith in you, and we plan to return to the Dream Priest world on the moons of Jupiter. We can also try to ease the suffering of your League mates' world. We assume that Obscitans Abyssus will send one of their generals to it.
Thank you, Father. I will look forward to speaking again soon. Please be safe.
Go on, my son. Restore our bloodline and right the wrongs of our past. It is all up to you now.
We are going to start with the 3 versus 6 quarterfinal with The Stars Are Right squad coming in with a 59.9% chance to win over the Clash at Demonhead, who are making their 4th career playoff appearance. We played back in week 13 with my team winning 100.76 to 74.96, but that doesn't really matter here. Quarterback will be a top spot to watch with the Clash at Demonhead going with Ron Rodgers right now against Miami. I am going with Jackson Dart against Washington. That could be one of the key differences here depending on who shows up. Obviously, it will be key to have Devon Achane healthy with Christian McCaffrey going on the other side. McCaffrey can easily drop 20 to 30 points against the Titans. DeAndre Swift has a tough matchup and is probably touchdown dependent, so Achane's health is even more important. Puka Nacua went off last week, and that will be key again with both Zay Flowers and DK Metcalf carrying momentum into this week. Brenton Strange against Travis Kelce at tight end looks to be an interesting spot as well. And Jalen Waddle versus Alec Pierce or anyone else on the bench for that matter. And the flex will be key as well. A lot of field goals are expected for Kaimi Fairbairn and Cam Little, but the Buccaneers defense has an edge over the Lions. That leaves 2 players I'm looking at as potential game changers. For the Clash at Demonhead, I'm watching James Cook, running back for the Buffalo Bills. He's been on fire lately with over 100 yards in his last 4 games, including over 170 just a few weeks ago. But the touchdowns have been light, with just 2 in the last 6 weeks. He did have 5 touchdowns in the first 4 weeks and 7 in the first 7 weeks. So law of averages could mean he is due to reach the end zone finally. I do have to say he's had over 100 yards in 10 of his 13 games, so has a pretty solid floor. He also had over 200 in Week 8, so he's got beast potential. This week he faces the Patriots, though. They are number 1 against running backs this season. They've allowed just 3 touchdowns on the ground and only 1 through the air. Only 4 running backs have had over 50 yards against them, which does include over 100 by Chase Brown in Week 12. But some of the backs they held in check were Devon Achane, Bijan Robinson, Quinshon Judkins, and Elvin Kamara. Another was James Cook, back in week 5. Cook had just 49 yards on 15 carries in the last matchup against the Patriots. If Cook could buck the trends and get touchdowns, that could be a massive boost for the Clash at Demonhead as they attempt to win their first playoff game in their league career. But if Cook has another down game, that could be a big blow to end hopes of any kind of upset here. Of course, for the Stars Are Right team, I turned to my trade pickup, A.J. Brown. I gave away a 5th rounder next season to give essentially in the hope that he's going to come back as a wide receiver 1 with his playoff schedule here. And here we go. Brown started very slow and inconsistent. Single-digit scores in 5 of the first 6 weeks of the season. He also missed week 8 with an injury and had down weeks in weeks 10 and 11 before the Stellar bitches traded him to me. But he's shown up at the right time since being traded. 3 straight games with 100 or more yards and 3 total touchdowns. He only cracked 100 yards twice in the previous 9 games he played. He also had just 3 touchdowns in the previous 9 games combined. This week, Brown plays the Raiders defense, which is ranked 25th against wide receivers. They've allowed 15 touchdowns to the position. They've done well not allowing a lot of yards the past few weeks, but did allow touchdowns to Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnson in week 13. George Pickens had over 140 yards and a score against them, while CeeDee Lamb also scored against them in week 11. Rashee Rice scored twice against them in week 7. Brown should have a good opportunity to score despite the Raiders not allowing a lot of yards through the air lately. If Brown can continue his upward trajectory and have a solid double-digit point game, that could be a huge compliment to other players on my team to hopefully lead me to a win. But if he goes back to his early season form, especially with Jalen Hurts playing awful right now, that could be the reason why the dream of a title for me dies once again. That brings us to the next quarterfinal matchup with number 4, Remember the Titans, taking on number 5, Thor-lacher. These 2 teams played back in week 9 with Remember the Titans eking out an 82.76 to 80.1 victory. That type of score is not expected here. Remember the Titans comes in with a 78.6% chance to win. These teams won Green Bowl titles in 2021 and 2022 respectively. Thor-lacher, then known as the Elite Mother Tuckers, had the greatest season in league history in 2022, with the overall points record being secured, a league best 15-1 overall record, which also included a league best 15-game winning streak. Thor-lacher is also the only number 1 overall seed to ever win a Green Bowl title. This is the first time that he's back in the playoffs since that historic season, which was his league rookie year. Remember, the Titans joined in 2018 and has been to playoffs 6 times, including 3 appearances in the Green Bowl, which is tied with former league member Meow Master for most all time. The last time they were runner-up in a Green Bowl, they won it the next season, so they're looking to continue that streak. Drake May versus Patrick Mahomes looks to be a big spot for Thor-lacher. They have had their best weeks this season when Mahomes scored over 30 points. Jamar Gibbs is a volume and speedster beast. He gets yards and touchdown opportunities every game, but this is a very tough matchup. Ashton Genty actually has a good matchup against the Eagles. If Swift can go off on them, so can Genty. So that is interesting to watch. Jackson Smith and Jigba and Jamar Chase has a huge advantage over Khalil Shakir and Cortland Sutton at wide receiver. That could be the killer for Thor-lacher here. George Kittle not only has a better matchup at tight end, but Tyler Warren will have a new quarterback throwing this away with Daniel Jones done for the season. Travis Etienne is a great matchup in the flex and will definitely be needed to shine for Thor-lacher. O'Marion Hampton might be in a running back committee in Los Angeles and has a tougher matchup. Both kickers are expected to get plenty of opportunities here with their matchups, while the Bears versus Chiefs defense should be interesting with those matchups. But I'm looking at 2 running backs as the wild cards in this wild card matchup. For Thor-lacher, I'm looking at Derrick Henry of the Ravens. Henry was picked up via trade with Pounders before the season even started and is one of the main reasons why Thor-lacher is here. Henry had a huge first game before 4 rough games, with 2 of those rough games actually salvaged by touchdowns, so they weren't as rough as it seemed. But he had 122 yards in week 6 and then has shined since the bye week. He's had at least 70 total yards in the past 7 games and 6 total touchdowns, including 2 games with 2 scores. This week, he gets a Bengals defense that is ranked dead last against this position. this season. They've allowed 11 touchdowns on the ground and 1 through the air, but they've also allowed 15 players to have over 50 rushing yards and 6 players with 80 or more rushing yards, including Kyle Monangai, who had 175 in Week 9. Of course, Henry had 60 yards and a score back in Week 13 against the Bengals, too, so we need to bring that up. One problem is that Joe Burrow is back and obviously healthy again, which could mean that this becomes more of a shootout. That doesn't bode well for a continued rushing game. Cincinnati's also at home. It doesn't mean weather won't be a factor, though, so we got to watch that. If Henry can have a big game, reach the end zone once or twice, that kind of score will keep you in a conversation for an upset, obviously. I think Thor-lacher does need a beast-type performance like that from Henry. But if Henry falters or is taken out of the game plan, if the game gets out of hand, that could be a big blow against a team like, remember, the Titans, that's expected to drop 115 points in the projections. And this leads us to remember the Titans, who has Travion Henderson going this week. Henderson had a very slow start to the season, was on Green Acres, actually dropped before Remember the Titans picked him up. He was behind Ramondre Stevenson on the depth chart for a while, but when Stevenson went out injured, Henderson came alive. 147 yards and 2 scores against Tampa Bay in Week 10, 62 yards and 2 scores against the Jets in Week 11. He had 14 carries in 2 games after Stevenson went down, 19 carries against the Jets, 18 carries the following week against the Bengals. However, Stevenson came back in Week 13 against the Giants, and Henderson had just 11 carries, with Stevenson vulturing some of that production, which was a little surprising. Henderson still looked like the better back and has a crazy good schedule for the playoffs. He faces Buffalo this week, who are tied for 5th worst against running backs this season, and they were steamrolled by Derrick Henry in Week 1 and by Bijan Robinson in Week 6. Both had over 150 yards and reached the end zone. The Bills have allowed 18 total touchdowns to running backs, including 16 on the ground. Achane went off for 174 yards and 2 scores in Week 10. Sean Tucker, 106 yards and 2 scores in Week 11. Jaylen Warren and Chase Brown also rushed for touchdowns in the past 2 weeks. Brown also caught a touchdown pass last week. If Henderson can break off a big play or two and reach the end zone, that could be enough to push them through to the next round. But as always, if Henderson has a down game or is vultured by Stevenson, that could leave the door open depending on Thor-lacher's star performances. Regardless, this is the playoffs. Anything can happen, and all it takes is one weird week. These should be great matchups with the winners deserving of another week, whatever the final scores are in these 2 quarterfinals. We also have 2 consolation quarterfinal matches happening this week, with the losing squads headed to the Dick Butt Bowl. Pounders did not have the season they wanted as the 2024 champs, and they take on the Fighting Mooses, who did not have the season they wanted as a league rookie. And this is being called a 50-50 toss-up. Matthew Stafford versus Jalen Hurts is big. The running back advantage goes to Pounders with Josh Jacobs and Javonte Williams. And the wide receiver advantage goes to the Fighting Mooses with Nico Collins, Chris Olave, and Michael Wilson. The Eagles' defense does have a much better matchup for Pounders. In the other consolation quarterfinal, the Stellar Bitches take on Loki Lebowski Thor. This is also a 50-50 toss-up. Dak Prescott versus Caleb Williams is big for the Stellar Bitches, as is Bijan Robinson versus Quinshon Judkins. Jordan Addison versus DJ Moore and Mark Andrews versus Trey McBride are other big matchups. So let's see how everything shakes out as the final 4 teams will be left in the quest for the Green Bowl. That's the show for the week. Hope you enjoyed it. Join us next week as we preview the semifinals and continue to try and resist the shadows of the Master Realm. Until next time, salut. Before you go, check out the final power rankings headed into the playoffs.